Good afternoon, folks, and thanks for joining us. Welcome to the MMA Sucka Post to UFC 284 podcast. My name's Tim Wheaton, joined as always by Frazer Krohn. Frazer Krohn, how are you feeling today?
I mean, we had to cut our conversation short, but pre-show because we were at risk of just breaking down the whole card, just talking me and you and not recording it. So I'm glad that we finally hit record and we can jump straight into it.
Well, we're just salivating to get into it. Like, I'm trying to get conversations going on Twitter. Every time my wife's coming through, I'm just like, hey, what do you think of pound for pound? What do you think of, like, counter wrestling? What's your opinion on scrambles? Like, but before we get into all that, we'd like to give a shout out to our sponsor at Athletic Greens. Their signature AG1 is perfect for daily nutrients and gut health support. AG1 solves two of the most important health needs: the nutrient your body needs each day and foundation of long-term gut health. Together, they fuel the whole body health, impacting everything from sleep, digestion, energy, mood, immunity, to the health of your hair, skin, and nails. Simply follow the link in our show description and get started today. I think you know a little bit more than I do about this one. This one's fairly popular, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's a really popular sort of supplement, as it were, and I think from what I've seen online, a lot of athletes use it because it's such a sort of a good supplement to use. It really does enhance enhance the way you feel and the way that you perform, and I wouldn't be surprised to see if I wouldn't be surprised to hear that a lot of the fighters on the card possibly use it as well. I did see on Twitter this morning that Dan Hooker was calling out somebody. We don't know who yet, but somebody for using an IV drip. So after the weigh-in, so we don't exactly need to use IV drips if we've got AG1 by Athletic Greens. So avoid use harder knocking at your door and follow the affiliate link in the description below.
Link will be down below. But let's start. I'll talk a little bit just to set up the first talking point because we know where the people want us to start. I'll talk into it a little bit and then I'll get you to run away with it. But I think often when we get into judging criteria, things are going to get messy. But I do think it's safe to say I would struggle to give Volkanovski 3 rounds. However, if we're judging the fight as a whole, I would give that fight to Volkanovski. But again, I can't find 3 rounds for him. I think 2, 3, and 5 are the most dominant rounds of the fight, and they're very clear. Those 2 rounds are better wins than Makhachev's 3 rounds that he probably eked out and he probably won. But again, if we're doing pride rules or one championship rules, this is a Volkanovski fight. But Frazer, what do you think? What did you see in it? What do you think of the judging?
Yeah, without a doubt, I think the 49-46 was a joke. I don't see that. I'd more see 48-47 in favor of Volkanovski than I did see 49-46 in favor of Makhachev. And that's not to say that I think it was a robbery. I actually scored it 48-47 in favor of Islam, who obviously that was the majority. You had 2 48-47s and a 49-46. I'm not sure how you give that third round to. So the scorecards scored the first 4 for Makhachev. So that judge needed Volkanovski to get a finish in the last round to win. Obviously, I mean, he was dominant in that final round, dropped Makhachev, ended the fight quite literally on top. And it's almost a shame that he didn't pull the trigger a little bit more in the earlier rounds, because we saw what he could do when he pulled the trigger. I think, like I say, that 5th round was the most dominant. And I think there's a debate around the 4th round for me. I scored it to Makhachev because I'm looking on UFCstats.com now. He landed 4 significant strikes. Sorry, it only took him 1 takedown, and he controlled Volkanovski for almost 3.5 minutes. With that being said, I could barely remember him throwing a strike when he had the body triangle, the back control on Volkanovski. With that being said, I think it was for someone who's not massive. Makhachev's not massively experienced of being, of having to struggle through that 3rd round and then come out in the 4th and dominate the position at least. And I think that was a real veteran move to just completely, Volkanovski could have really sort of, it was going Volkanovski's way. It was really going Volkanovski's way. After that 3rd round, like we say, easy round to score in favor of the featherweight champion Volkanovski.
Yeah.
And for Makhachev to just completely nullify that kind of hype that he'd built up in that 3rd round, lock on the body triangle. I don't need to do much. I just need to do enough to not be stood up. And it kind of brought the mood all the way back down. And then obviously the fifth round again didn't quite go his way. You know, he was dropped by Volkanovski. He could barely. I mean, I'm just looking at the stats here: 52 strikes for Volkanovski, 8 for Makhachev. He only threw 16 strikes in that final, in that final round, and you know he landed 50% of them. I thought it was, you know, that fourth round was pretty veteran of Makhachev, despite the fact that he's not really a veteran. He's never really had to be in that position where he's coming from a couple of rounds, you know, a round down where it was decisive.
Yeah. The fourth round, like, it is a question of Volkanovski was throwing punches behind his back. We know there's not much power there, and he's yelling to the audience, and the audience is yelling back. I think that did convince a lot of people watching that there was a lot going on. But I have to argue, and I like Volkanovski a lot. Don't worry, I really like Volkanovski. That's not what I'm saying. But you have to argue of, like, those punches are not that effective compared to a body triangle. A body triangle is I know we're supposed to compare damage. I would guarantee you a body triangle is probably more damaging than the pitter-patter punches. However, if you judged it the other way, I'm not going to push back that much. I think that's fine. Again, like, as a whole, Volkanovski probably won. But I do want to make another argument with you. And I think I should have prepped you ahead of time for this one because it's kind of out of the blue. But however, you did see people talk about this afterwards of boxing is 12 rounds at 3 minutes. That's 36 minutes. UFC championship fights are only 25 minutes. What if we did champion versus champion fights for 7 rounds in the UFC? That's still only 35 minutes. I think the lower weight classes can certainly succeed. I don't think we're doing this at heavyweight, but like 7 rounds, you saw Volkanovski. He could do 7 rounds and he would have won at 7 rounds. This isn't crazy,
No, I
right?
completely agree. And I think it does go back to that fourth round is if Volkanovski didn't have the body, if Makhachev didn't have the body triangle on Volkanovski for, you know, 3.5, almost 4 minutes, 3.5 minutes of that fight, of that round, sorry. And Volkanovski forced him to, you know, maybe if he defended that takedown, maybe if he forced him to strike a little bit more. Makhachev was fatigued in that final round. We saw it. You know, he got dropped by Volkanovski with about a minute and a little bit to go, you know, a minute change to go. And I kind of wish that Volk could maybe work the body a little bit more in the early round and early sort of minutes of the fight, because Makhachev was fatigued in that fifth round. And if he hadn't got that body triangle, and you know, we know, like you said, I think I completely agree that the sort of pitter patter behind the headshots and the sort of, they're not damaging strikes. We saw Stevie Ray finish Anthony Pettis in the PFL pretty much with that body triangle and sort of turn it into a modified twister. It's a painful position to be in when you're the person in the body triangle.
Yeah.
And you've got to sort of, it's a risk reward thing for the person locking on the body triangle in this situation, Makhachev, because it burns your legs out. You're constantly having to sort of pull your own leg into sort of, not even pull it into position, but you've got to hold it into position. It burns the legs out. The muscles are working to keep your opponent there, who's going to be wriggling. He's going to be moving out of the way. And, you know, there was nothing really. That fourth round was a bit of a nothing round for me. There wasn't really a lot going on. But no, I completely agree. I think if that round had been maybe a stand-up round, we maybe would have seen Volkanovski, I don't want to say finish Makhachev, because he did drop him and he wasn't able to finish him. But, you know, if you look at Makhachev at the end of that fifth round, he didn't jump straight back to his feet and, you know, was raring to go. He was glad to hear that final bell. If there's another round there, he's struggling. He's struggling in that sixth round. He's struggling in a seventh round. Like you say, in boxing, there's more rounds over a shorter distance. You know, obviously we have the 3-minute rounds, and it could only be for title fights, because, you know, there's too many talking points. But we won't really touch on the Jimmy Crute, Alonzo Menafield. But those guys were dead at the end of that fight, and it was, you know, that was a high-paced fight. Jimmy Crute's got a crazy chin, but, you know, these guys can't do 35 minutes. They could barely do 15 minutes. But this is why, you know, Volkanovski is, you're talking one of the best gas tanks in the game, let alone in the lightweight, featherweight, lightweight division. He's got one of the best gas tanks in the game. And he, you know, we never doubted that from him going in. We questioned how the extra 10 pounds might play on him with regards to his cardio. I certainly did. But I don't think his cardio looked any different to what it did when he competes at 45.
Yeah. No, just incredible work from Volkanovski. His cardio looked flawless here. If like his best rounds were later in the fight after getting dropped a couple of times, like it just took him a minute, took him 2 rounds to wake up. Just absolutely insane. And while he lost, his stock certainly rose. And like between the Khabib title fights and the Islam title fights, this is the best that anyone has done against this Dagestani wrestling style. And I don't think there's anything of like, oh, there's the formula to beat him. Yeah, have incredible cardio, have the fastest hips between two divisions, incredible scrambles. Like, yeah, that's the formula. Be a better wrestler. His scrambling was absolutely insane. But how did he do it? Do you have a breakdown for us?
Yeah, I have a slight just for this for the co-main event. I have a few more a few more examples of how Yair sort of won that fight. But for this one, I've got just one example of how when Volkanovski was taken down.
Yeah.
You know, what surprised me is how good Volkanovski is at wrestling, and what surprised me is how good Makhachev was at striking.
Yes.
Makhachev largely outstruck Volkanovski for periods of that fight, and Volkanovski largely nullified Makhachev's game. What the issue is with Makhachev is he's so dangerous in the wrestling. It's similar to when Khabib knocked Conor down. Conor was so thought up about, oh, I've got to defend the wrestling, I've got to defend this, I've got to defend that. And then he lands that big overhand right and drops Conor. Similar in this fight, in my opinion, Volkanovski was focusing on being on his toes, being elusive, switching stances, making in the back of his mind, making sure that he has his hips back, his hips loaded to like you say, the fastest hips in the game. He wants to sprawl out. For me, that's why Makhachev slightly outstruck Volka. First round, yes, he got the takedown. Second round, he largely outstruck him. Just looking at quickly before I show you guys a GIF. Sorry for the audio listeners, but we are on YouTube, MMA Sucka Podcast. Get over on it. But the first round, total strikes, Makhachev outstruck Volkanovski. Second round, they both landed 30 total strikes. Both landed 19 significant strikes. This is from a guy that's meant to be a Dagestani wrestler who falls over his feet in order to try and get the takedown. Mm-hmm. It didn't happen because I think Volkanovski's mind was so loaded with, I've got to defend the takedown. I've got to defend the takedown. Oh, I've been caught with a quick shot. And I think Makhachev was a lot quicker than Volkanovski maybe expected. Yeah. But yeah, I think what Makhachev struggled with is how good once the fight hit the floor. And we spoke about this last week on the show that Volkanovski knew he was going to get taken down. If you face Makhachev, when people used to face Khabib, they knew they were being taken down. There's no doubting that they are going to at some point hit the mat. And again, I'll go back to the Conor and Khabib fight. The first time that fight hit the ground, you could see that Conor had worked on holding the ankle over the top of Khabib, trying to circle his hips out, and it obviously on that occasion didn't quite work. On this occasion, what Volkanovski did is as soon as he hit the ground, he did a really good way of elevating his legs and sort of almost trying to flick Makhachev off. Every time he was ground, it made it harder for Islam to settle into that position. I think the size of Volkanovski also made it a little bit more difficult to settle into that position because he is shorter. We saw from all the face-offs, we saw from the fight itself, he's a lot shorter than Islam. He's a lot shorter than Charles Oliveira, the guy that Islam was easily able to control last time. Islam was never able to settle in the position. Now, let me just pull up.
Yeah. One of the wrestling basics is you want your hips always lower than your opponents. Volkanovski's hips are always lower than his opponents.
So it almost led him to sort of reaching for the takedown. And I think, I can't remember what round, I think it might have been the third or the fourth round when Makhachev, beautiful takedown. He just completely changed levels underneath a Volkanovski punch. And that's what you have to do. You have to catch your opponent in that situation, like you say, when physiologically you can't get your hips lower than your opponent, you have to drop the level there and get under your opponent and sort of almost catch them off guard. And that's what Makhachev did, showing what a high level wrestler he is. But let me just show you this example of how Volkanovski was able to prevent the takedown. Or prevent settling on the takedown. So we'll bring it back to the beginning now.
Okay.
Are we good? Yeah. So yeah, if you look here, this is in the fifth round. Volkanovski, look at this his left leg here. It completely elevates Makhachev's leg. We'll bring it back to just here. We'll bring it back slightly. You can see there Volkanovski's leg just here. Volkanovski's leg is elevated Islam Makhachev's leg. And it's not allowed Makhachev to step over into full guard. And then we bring it back. And Volkanovski, look, he's fighting to get on top there. And it's because Islam Makhachev's leg is not Islam Makhachev's left leg's not been able to get in. And then look, like you said earlier, the hips are back. He's back to his feet. We'll just run it through just once more.
Yep.
Overshoots, elevate the leg, doesn't allow him to step over. Still, that leg still isn't in play. Hips back, and he gets back to his feet. Which I think,
how is he so good?
I think that's vital to be doing that in a fight like this, when you know after that fourth round that if Makhachev does get on top of you, he's, Volkanovski did say, he doesn't feel that strong. He managed to control you for pretty much the majority of the fourth round. If he was controlled in that fifth round, it was certainly game over. It was 49-46. But he didn't allow him to, and I think that was just so good from Volkanovski. But I think we can't take away from just how good Islam Makhachev is as well.
Yeah.
Punishing Volkanovski in the clinch. Vicious knees. It was a lot quicker than Volkanovski. I think a lot quicker than Volkanovski sort of anticipated him to be. He was landing straight left down the pipe, especially in that fifth round. He cut Volkanovski open. I think that might have been in the third or the fourth, or even it might have actually been early in the fifth. And that's that's a damaging strike at the end of the day. And it's just really Makhachev. Everyone's saying it. I watched 10 minutes of Joe Rogan and Joe Rogan's fight companion. He was saying that he thought Volkanovski when Brendan Shaw was shouting robbery. It's not a robbery. Brendan Shaw needs to, I'd say stick to stand up, but by the sounds of it, his stand up's pretty shit as well. But
come on,
it's not a robbery by any stretch of the imagination. At the end of the day, it was a close fight. You can't be shouting robbery when it's a close fight. And I don't think. But I mean, Volkanovski's stock, I think, has risen in defeat, and I don't think Makhachev, I don't think he was as dominant as maybe people thought he would be, but he still put on a phenomenal performance. He still beat the number one pound for pound guy at the time. Mm-hmm. And now we have to look forward to the pound for pound debate, whether we think that Makhachev is the pound for pound number one.
Let's get into it. Like, if anything, this proves the opposite, that Volkanovski is definitely pound for pound best. As we've talked about before, it's all based on Sugar Ray Leonard. People trying to say, like, if this guy was a heavyweight, he'd beat up all the heavyweights with that same skill set. And then people went, oh, I get it now. So it was a way of describing that. So really, pound for pound has always been like Demetrius Johnson. But the way that we use it today is most accomplished with most high quality victories over the best competition, which is fine. Like, if that's your definition, fine. But I find that with pound for pound debates, we're often not even agreeing on what the definition is. But if anything, this proved Volkanovski is definitely pound for pound number one. Am I crazy here?
I agree. First of all, I think for Makhachev to get 2 wins in the top 5, yes, they're against Charles Oliveira, yes, it's against Alexander Volkanovski. 2 wins in the top 5, and you're saying he's the best fighter on the planet is a hard sell for me. You look at Volkanovski, he's beaten a pound for pound great in Max Holloway, who has gone up and down divisions and been competitive in both. You beaten Jose Aldo. Yes, it was towards the back end of his career, but you beaten Jose Aldo. You beaten Brian Ortega, top 10. For me, all of Volkanovski's fights, the way he's been built from his first fight in the UFC, the way he's been built, they've all made logical sense. He's got to win, he fights someone high. He's got to win, he fights someone high. He's got to win, he fights someone high. He gets himself in the top 10, top 15. He's in a title eliminator. He beats Max Holloway once. The immediate rematch makes a lot of sense. He beats Max Holloway twice. He then beats the next contender. He then beats the next contender. He then beats the next contender. These aren't just, we're not just pulling guys, no disrespect to Jamahal Hill, but he wasn't the next contender. He was the 7th ranked guy who managed to defeat the former champion. Mm-hmm. Doesn't quite make sense, because we're still asking, is he the best in the world? Because they've got 4 or 5 guys who are all ranked higher than him. Volkanovski has no denying that he is the best featherweight in the world. There's no question for me at all. And then he goes up and is highly, highly, highly competitive at a weight class where he's giving up everything. He's given up height. He's given up, I mean, he actually had a longer reach, which is ironic, but he's given up height. He's given up size. He's given up, supposed strength. It's a bad matchup for him anyway, because Makhachev's a bad matchup for anyone. If he would have gone up and faced a fellow striker,
Eddie Alvarez, just off the top of my head, Eddie Alvarez.
Yeah, what could have happened?
He would have knocked him out. I think he would have knocked out Eddie Alvarez.
He would have knocked out Eddie Alvarez. But let's say I mean, I think he matches up well with Charles Oliveira. Charles Oliveira hasn't got that wrestling base. He enjoys a pressure sort of style. And yes, he's got a phenomenal submission game, but I mean,
different fight. It's a very
it's a
different fight.
completely different fight. And
yeah,
for me, I think Volkanovski has shown that if you can, for Islam Makhachev to be pound for pound, he's the bigger guy. He's taking on the smaller guy. He's taking on the guy that came up a division from. It would be completely different again if, let's say, Leon Edwards went down to 155 and it was a close fight, because he would be giving up size, he'd be giving up striking ability, he'd be giving up, he'd be giving up a lot of things. But all the eggs were kind of in Makhachev's basket, as it were.
Yeah.
Volkanovski was the one giving everything up. He was giving up size, strength. He was coming up a division, and it was a razor close fight. Like I say, I think 48-47 to Makhachev for me was the right scorecard, but I think 48-47 to Volk, we're not screaming robbery. I'm not mad about that at all. And I still think he's pound for pound number one. Yeah. We all know that the UFC will put Makhachev pound for pound number, or not the UFC, the
12 people who randomly.
Yeah, I mean, the 12 guys that just sit in a room and say, who do we like the most?
But I want to also throw out that, like, when Khabib reached the rank of pound for pound number one, that was a really big deal because of who the contemporaries that we were talking about were. Like, in his pound for pound competition, when Khabib was there, it was Kamaru Usman, Israel Adesanya, John Jones, and I think Max Holloway or Volkanovski. Now, almost all those guys are not active or they've lost. So to be pound for pound number one, it's actually not it's not the most illustrious period that I've seen for pound, right? And no offense to anybody certainly in the pound for pound, but it's just like when you're comparing it to a Kamaru and Israel and John Jones, this is a different period.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's all relative to, you can only, it's the classic, you can only beat what's in front of you. You can only be top of the pound for pound for sort of who's in there. But, Kamaru Usman was pound for pound. Leon Edwards knocked him out. And yes, he overtook him in the pound for pound rankings, but he doesn't go to number one. That doesn't quite make sense to me. And you look down at the pound for pound. It hasn't been updated, so Volkanovski's still number one. Makes completely logical sense to me.
I agree. I think he's beat better competition. If you want to make that argument of better competition, I think he's beaten better competition. If it's size, if it's like skill for a size, that's Volkanovski by far.
Yeah, for sure. I think skill for skill.
Yeah,
Volkanovski is the best fighter on the planet. I don't see anyone giving him problems. Hypothetically speaking, like we say, if everyone's the exact same size, blah blah blah, I don't see anyone giving him difficulties in the wrestling realm, because he's just dealt with, up there with the best wrestlers in the game. Khabib probably gives him problems, but Khabib's not in the game anymore. But the pound for pound rankings for me, they're a bit all over the place. Deverson Figueiredo's in there. Yes, yes, he's a former champion, but you say, he's going to go up to the bantamweight, and we discussed there. I think Sean O'Malley is a bad matchup for him. Petr Yan, Merab, Marlon Vera, Corey Sandhagen, even going down as far as Rob Font and Dominic Cruz. I think they're bad matchups for him. Yeah. So it's that for me is a difficult sell. And Dustin Poirier is in there as well.
That's not the worst one, but
it's not the worst one. But he's coming off sort of one win, and we've only seen it. I think if Islam Makhachev was really about that pound for pound life, I think he'd be ringside in London at the end of next month.
I didn't want to get it. I think he has an easier time beating Leon Edwards than he does Volkanovski. Without a doubt. Okay.
Because I think, with that being said, I do want to see, Leon's defensive wrestling against Kamaru in the first fight was extremely good. We saw that on show. But
while his cardio was in it, it was very good.
Yeah.
After the cardio was gone, but now we're at sea level. So.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I hope does make the difference in London in a few weeks. But the pound for pound for me, like I say, I think for someone to be coming up in weight by 10 pounds, making all the sort of, not having the height, not having the strength. Yes, it's in his backyard, but and it being such a close fight, I think it would be hard to deny that Volkanovski is that still the pound for pound number one, in my opinion. And I'm fascinated to see how he matches up with, Yair Rodríguez. after
Yeah.
after the way Rodriguez looked. But that's a fight for another day, as it were.
Yeah, no, it's a very different fight than what we just saw. It's a much more dangerous kicking game. I think Yair actually does quite well in that fight. For Volkanovski, I think ultimately wins. It's an interesting one. Is that what you want to see next for Volkanovski, or is it? I don't know that another rematch of this like this makes sense, because I think the one-off, the fun of it, it makes it special.
Yeah, for sure. I think if we just start giving, Volkanovski said he thinks he won 2, 3, and 5. He came out on Twitter and said that he thinks he won 2, 3, and 5, which it's not. It's not. Possibly. Makhachev thinks that Volkanovski won 1 minute. I think he's just sort of playing the bad guy, which is fine. You for your first. Let's not be mistaken. This fight wasn't on the cards if Charles Oliveira had won that fight against Makhachev. This fight wasn't on the cards. This fight, Khabib made this fight, getting on the mic after the win. Yeah, we'll go to Perth. We'll fight Volkanovski for the number 1 pound for pound. Let's not forget that Makhachev hasn't beaten anybody in his division, not named Charles Oliveira.
Yeah.
He hasn't beaten Poirier, Gaethje, Dariush, who a lot of people are talking about is going to be a horrible fight for him. I think Michael Chandler's a tough fight for him because he's got a good defensive wrestling, but obviously we know that he's matched up. Fiziev, I think he probably handles pretty handily, in my opinion. Gamrot and Sarukian, tough fights. I still want to see the RDA fight. I don't think it goes RDA's way, but I still want to see him. Someone like Jalen Turner who's coming through, who's long, rangy, and really good everywhere.
Yeah.
Makhachev, for me, needs to start defending his belt in his division before. Like I say, if he really wants to be pound for pound, I think he probably could go up and face the welterweight champion, whether it be, biasly Leon Edwards this time next month or Kamaru Usman. But I mean, let's be honest, he hasn't beaten anybody in his division. He's beaten Charles Oliveira on what appeared to be Charles Oliveira's off day. And that's it in the top 15. That's it in the top 15. There is nobody else in the top 15 that Islam Makhachev. And I don't want to take anything away from Islam Makhachev. I do think he is top 2, top 3 pound for pound. There's no denying that. The guy is on a...
Yes.
He's 24-1 or 23-1. But defend the belt in your own division before you start moving. It's like, I didn't quite agree with Conor moving up, at UFC 205 when he did to face Eddie Alvarez. But that was New York, the first event in New York, coming off the Diaz fights, facing Eddie Alvarez. There was questions around it, and Conor just wiped the floor with him, as we know. But let's be honest, like I said, Beneil Dariush, phenomenal black belt on the ground. We saw how vicious he was against Mateusz Gamrot last time out with regards to his takedown defense, and he can piece Makhachev up on the feet. That's a horrible fight for Makhachev, and it's let's not be silly. It's a horrible fight for Dariush if he gets taken down. It works both ways. But I want to see Makhachev versus Dariush. I want to see him in a rematch against Charles Oliveira. I want to see him against Justin Gaethje, because Gaethje, Khabib admitted that if a couple more leg kicks and he's cooked.
Yeah.
Volkanovski was landing leg kicks on Makhachev, and they were hurting Makhachev, and they were spinning Makhachev around. I want to see him against these guys, and I want to see him prove that he is. There's questions around his weight. He looked extremely relieved to be making that 155. We saw him quite upset and quite relieved to be making 155, the 155 mark on, what was it, Friday night. It ended up being, I think, if at our time, I was all over the place with the weigh-in times and everything this weekend. And now Dan Hooker's coming out and saying that I'm assuming that he's talking about Islam. I don't want to speak out of turn, but Dan Hooker's implying that somebody on the card used. I'll try and just pull the tweet up now. Somebody on the card used an IV. Came over to Australia, hired a nurse to use an IV. IV, sorry.
Be surprised.
He seems pretty adamant. Dan Hooker tweeted, I won't say the actual word, dumb C thinks he can fly to Australia, hire a nurse to give him an IV, and we won't find out, cheating dog. And then he screenshotted UFC fighter's face up to his 2 years suspension for IV use. You started doing fuck all, and then prove me wrong, bet you can't. At the end of the day, I think I don't think that he's going to be proved wrong on this, Makhachev,
No.
but and again, I'm not even sure if he's talking about Makhachev, but
I can't imagine that he's going to tweet about like Justin Taffa or something.
Exactly. I don't think he's too bothered about Parker Porter's weight.
No.
It's it's not his division. This is Dan Hooker's division. He's obviously understandably bitter about him having lost to Makhachev because he's a competitor at the highest level. But yeah, I completely, going back to the original point you made about 10 minutes ago, and I've just gone off on a rant and rave. I want to see Volkanovski versus obviously Yair next. Yeah. Maybe down the line see a rematch, but for me, Makhachev needs to start defending against guys that are his side. Let's not forget, Charles Oliveira was also a featherweight. Yes, he missed weight 9 times.
He struggled,
but he was also a featherweight. You got Dustin Poirier, who's competed, or talking about competing up at lightweight because he's so big. Beneil Dariush cuts a ton of weight. Justin Gaethje cuts a ton of weight. These guys are Makhachev's size and in his division. Defending your division next. Next, I want to see either, Gaethje or Fiziev, whoever wins that one, maybe gets the title shot. Probably more Fiziev because Gaethje's obviously, only got one win. It would only be a one fight winning streak.
He's perennial. He's a perennial contender, though.
For sure.
No one's going to argue.
Exciting fights, and there's always, we don't know what we'll see from Gaethje.
Yeah.
But for me, the fight to make next for Makhachev is Beneil Dariush. It's earned, it's deserved, it's logical. It's a tough matchup for both men, especially for Islam Makhachev because of Beneil Dariush's all-round game. And it's the fight to make for me, without a doubt.
Yeah, that's fair. You can tell some days when we're just like super efficient, we know exactly what we want to say, what we're trying to say. Like we're only 30 minutes in, Frazer. Like we're efficient. We said everything. We were talking about counter wrestling and scrambles. We got the video already. I don't think there's anything else. Like we talked pound for pound. We knew exactly what we were trying to say. We even talked about 7 rounds, like a bunch of weirdos.
Yeah.
I guess we'll get to the rest of the card then. UFC 284. Yair Rodríguez. It was a good fight with Josh Emmett. This was a good fight. This was a ton of fun. Landed some amazing kicks. Josh Emmett found a lot of inside strikes here and there, but it was Yair Rodríguez really landing effectively. Won the fight via submission. Interim champ. Cool. Good for Yair Rodríguez. Now he's next for Volkanovski. What did you see in the fight?
I think, Yair Rodríguez has battered Josh Emmett. Emmett landed that bomb twice, maybe 3 times over the best part of 10 minutes. It was a late submission. Can't remember the time that it came. 4:19 of the second round. So it was a late submission. But if you just, I know I like looking at the stats, and I know they don't tell the whole story, but 98 strikes landed to 35.
And they were big strikes. They were all kicks and knees.
I mean, the body work from Yair Rodríguez. I'm a low kick guy. I like a calf kick. I love a calf kick. He was flattening. He was folding Josh Emmett with those body kicks. And, we said on last week's show that Yair has to be the matador. I listened to Dan Hardy and Veronica Macedo's sort of breakdown podcast of the fight. And they said that they want Yair Rodríguez just to relax a little bit. He seems very pent up all the time, throwing hundreds of strikes, spinning this, spinning that. He goes out 100%. And I thought for the first 3 or 4 minutes he did that. He was very reserved. He was finding his range. He was throwing kicks to try and make the reads. And Josh Emmett barely threw. And then it kind of ignited in that after about 3 or 4 minutes, which I'm happy about. I don't want to see 2 guys just sort of shadow each other, a la Ngannou Lewis. But we said that Rodríguez has to be the matador. He has to be the counterer. He has to, if he goes, he has to go in and come straight all the way out. And Emmett made it easy for him to be that, be that kind of that matador, as it were, like we say. Because he was so predictable. Emmett is just, Michael Johnson, Mirsad Bektic, I think Ricardo Lamas, he slept all of them, absolutely slept all of them with that huge right hand of his. But if he doesn't land it, he falls over his front leg, he swings round, he ends in horrible positions, and he just becomes too predictable for me in these massive swings. And it's an awkward style because he knows if he lands it, he puts his man out. But if he doesn't land it, this is what happens at the weekend. We saw him in round one, I've got an example of it. He threw 3 straight rights in a row. The first one was blocked by Yair. The second one was blocked, and Yair began to move out of the way. And then the third one, Yair was completely out of the way. He all but sort of dropped his hands, because he just knew that it was so far out. I'll show you the example now. Let me just share my screen. Share that. So look here.
Good. Right straight.
Right straight. He misses every single 1, 2, 3, misses them, and it was almost, that reminds me a little bit of Ronda Rousey versus Holly Holm. Look, he almost collapses into the fence. They were only closer. I mean, look, the first strike there, blocked again, and then on that final one, we'll just pull it back to the final, or we'll just watch it through. That final one here, he doesn't even bother really defending this final strike, because he knows that Emmett is so, look, 1, 2, 3, and this is where the strike is supposed to have landed. Look at where Yair Rodríguez is here. If that lands, he's out. Look at the shape of Yair Rodríguez. That is not a strong stance. But then look at Josh Emmett. He's fallen over that lead leg there. It wasn't great by Josh Emmett. And I'll put up another example here of how big he, we see, great body work here by Yair. Just bringing it through. Body work, look, big knee to the body. Beautiful. This is the second round now. Big knee to the body. And I think he lands a body and a strike over the top. He lands a body kick in a second here. But look at this strike from Josh Emmett. Look, if that lands on Yair Rodríguez, who, as we can see, look, all the weight is on his front foot. If this strike lands, Yair Rodríguez is put out. We'll just play it through. Misses, completely, wildly misses, and over swings. And look, it just completely, it's not, it does cut a little bit short, unfortunately, but we'll just try and pull it here. Look, he's so, it's close, the strike was close to land it, but look at how much power he puts into it. He swings all the way, and he sort of crosses his own body. His right hand ends up in his left pocket. Crazy overswing, in my opinion. And then finally, we've got, I did kind of want to include this one because we see a beautiful elbow, but Yair just makes the read, ducks underneath the first strike here, bang.
Was it the double? Oh,
it's a hand strike here.
Oh, and then the elbow. Oh, it's so good.
Bang, underneath again. He's too predictable, Josh Emmett. Look, final time, over the top. A little bit of hand fighting here. Big elbow over the top. He's hurt. He knows he's hurt. He knows a big strike's coming underneath again. It's a shame in a way for Josh Emmett, because I don't see him being competitive at 145 again with regards to the title picture.
No.
But it's a phenomenal performance by Yair Rodríguez. He put it all together, and he got it done. Yes, he was hurt in that fight. Josh Emmett, did rock him, but he put it all together. He looked phenomenal. I'm not surprised. I'm pretty sure he got a performance of the night bonus, so that doesn't come as a surprise to me at all.
Well, yeah, and Josh Emmett fought Josh Emmett's fight, and this is why we thought like Calvin Kattar should be able to beat him. Like, I'm surprised that he didn't. But on the overswing, thanks for putting the video up. But like, that's why they don't, in boxing, they teach you, don't fucking overswing, because when you do that, your arm is way on the other side of you. You can't do a follow-up. If everything's tight, you do that right hook and it's right here, and you miss, that's okay, because your left hook or your left uppercut is still right there. It's still in range. Yair had his guard all the way down. If you were tight with it, then you could do a follow-up. But instead, he swings it, and it's way on the other side of him. There's no follow-up there. Like, I know maybe you get slightly less power, but if you can set up your next shot and chain together a combination. Anyway, both of you and I predicted that Yair should dominate this fight, and I actually think he did better than we expected, right?
100%. I thought, like I said, I didn't see him working the body so much. I thought, body kicks are a risk because Josh Emmett could take him down, work his ground game, work his wrestling, that team alpha male style, and sort of grind it out. Yeah, Yair clearly, as we saw in the last couple of minutes of the second round, was not scared to go to the ground with Josh Emmett. Lands a massive flying knee. Yes, he was taken down, bang, working the triangle. And even, I think, at the end of the first round, the ground and pound that he was landing, see, that's what Volkanovski didn't do.
He pushed the hips back to load it, and then brought the elbows down and brought his hips back up to collide it. So good.
Phenomenal stuff. And that's what we mean is, just because you've got a dominant position like Josh Emmett had in that situation, Yair Rodríguez was doing more damage. Yeah. Yair Rodríguez won that exchange. The position doesn't matter. You could be like you say, Josh Emmett was in Yair Rodriguez's guard with the dominant position visually. If you watched, if you took a screenshot of that moment, Josh Emmett's winning that fight, winning that position, winning that part of the fight. However, we talk about damage, like you say, loaded the hips, bang, landed those elbows, landed the elbows. It was phenomenal work from Yair Rodriguez, who, let's be honest, when we saw him against Frankie Edgar, he was battered on the ground. Frankie Edgar messed him up on the ground. Rodriguez has come on leaps and bounds on the ground. He wasn't really in much danger against Brian Ortega last time out before the injury. He wasn't in any danger, and with the guy being dangerous, he set up. He didn't take any damage really on the ground and set up the triangle, and obviously got the tap. I predicted after watching the first round, I thought we were going to see a Shevchenko versus Jessica Eye type knockout because he was working that body so quickly. And we know about Rodriguez, how good he is at mixing his kicks low, high, and in the middle.
So good.
I thought he was going to be, he was battering the body of Josh Emmett so much that I thought he was then going to just come up over the top with one of them and sleep him. Yeah. But he didn't really need to. He was battering the body of Josh Emmett through the flying knee, was caught, taken down, and that's all she wrote. Yeah. I think for Josh Emmett, I think that probably ended the best way it could have possibly ended for Josh Emmett after the way that Rodriguez was fighting in those first two rounds. Because I think if he would have come out for a third round, he would have just continued to take more prolonged damage. And, maybe, Josh Emmett, unfortunately, at 36, 37, I'm not quite sure how old he is. I can't remember. Maybe he moves up to lightweight, has a couple of fun fights up there because he looked like an absolute skeleton on the scales on Friday. He always does. He always has a tough weight cut. He's a big, we can see he's a massive guy, but, maybe he does move up to 155 for the sort of back end of his career, have a few fun fights up there. Maybe he gets a top 10 next, who knows? But I don't really want to see him. It wasn't competitive. Yeah. And you have to look, Yair is going to be fighting Volkanovski next. Who do you put Josh Emmett in with? Giga Chikadze. Giga Ilia Topuria. Does he become the gatekeeper? Is what I'm asking now. I think I like your opinion on it. Does he become the gatekeeper? Does a Masvidal Evelev? Does an Ilia Topuria?
He loses to most of these guys, honestly.
Yeah. Topuria, I think, is a dreadful matchup for him.
Yeah,
got striking, not too far off the ability of Yair Rodriguez, in my opinion, and got an insane wrestling base. I think that's
Giga Chikadze would knock him out with a body kick.
Yeah, exactly. So it's quite rough times for Josh Emmett, in my opinion.
You can tell there's a certain brand of striking that you and I really like. You can tell.
There's the body kick and the vicious body kicks. But we say there's a certain brand of striking we like. Jack Della Maddalena is essentially a boxer.
Go on.
I love this guy. I love this guy. He is world class. What a performance! He was struggling, in my opinion, with the range of Randy Brown. Doesn't surprise me. Randy Brown is, for want of a better word, lanky for the division. His 78-inch reach advantage against Maddalena's 73-inch reach advantage. But Randy Brown is also 6'3", so it accentuates that reach advantage, makes it a lot bigger, a lot better. I don't know what Maddalena's gloves are loaded with, but I think he's put concrete in his gloves or something, because that one shot behind the ear face planted Randy Brown. He tried to sort of roll through and recover. But this shows Della Maddalena. He's what, 16 fights into he's 16 fights into his professional career. He's on a 14-fight winning streak. He's got 2 losses on his record in his first and second fight. Since then, been undefeated. He's got three KOs in a row, all in the first round. Pete Rodriguez, Ramzan Ameev, Danny Roberts back in November. You could almost forgive him for looking to, try and ground and pound Randy Brown out. But he had the wherewithal, he had the intelligence to, I've hurt this guy, I've dropped this guy. Yep. I'm just going to snatch his neck. I don't need to hit him anymore. I don't need to do any more to him. I can just snatch the neck's there and I'm going to take it. I thought it was a phenomenal performance by Jack Della Maddalena.
Yeah.
I've got a piece coming out later today, I think, on who we can match him up with next, because he's dangerous, and there's not a lot of people, in my opinion, that are going to want to fight him, because it's not, I imagine he may be ranked after today's rankings, but that, I'm just looking down the division. It's a little bit harsh on Li Jingliang if they sort of kick him out of the rankings.
I know. I was going to say, maybe that's the next fight for him. It's a fun fight for him, but go on.
I think without a doubt he needs a ranked guy next. You can't have 4 first-round finishes of varying difficulty and not give him a ranked guy next. It's only fair. It's only fair.
It's only fair. But yeah, I wanted to say, like, this is why you don't back up on straight lines, because he backed up in a straight line and then tried to circle out when his back was against the cage. Randy Brown did. If you started circling in the first place, you wouldn't have had so much of an issue. But yeah, I mean, the timing and the power of Jack Della Maddalena, like, he's got a good eye for this kind of stuff. What's next for him? I do like Li Jingliang. I think he beats Michel Pereira. Neil Magny is still ranked in there. It's a tough division because no one actually fights at welterweight. Like, it's just, there's no.
I mean, he beats Jorge Masvidal. Yes, Masvidal's got a fight lined up, obviously, with Burns next month, but he beats Jorge Masvidal. I said it.
No question.
He doesn't beat Shavkat. Nobody beats Shavkat. Shavkat might go, but Vicente Luque, does Vicente Luque take that fight? Someone, a little bit of a spoiler, someone that's in my sort of in my article for him to face. That's a tough fight, but
it is.
It's a fan-friendly fight without a doubt, and that could probably headline. Vicente Luque is coming off 2 losses, obviously to Bilal, where he's out wrestled, and then to Jeff Neal, where he was knocked out. I can see them, I didn't realize, but Sean Brady is out of the Michel Pereira fight. They were supposed to be fighting next month. Maybe he gets Michel Pereira, or maybe, depending on how bad, I think Sean Brady tore his groin, something, which isn't
bad.
So he's going to be out for a prolonged period of time. But, I don't know who, like I said, I don't know who they match, because if you see the UFC calling with the name Jack Della Maddalena, you don't answer that phone. You put that phone down. You pretend that you flick your phone straight on airplane mode. You do not answer that phone call, because he's a horrible fight. He's got phenomenal boxing. We saw he's got a really good takedown defense when he faced Emiv. And, this is how you build a guy. He only made his he was on the Contender Series in 2021. He made his debut in January of 2022. 3-0 in 2022. He's already facing Randy Brown, who I believe has been ranked, or at least deserves a ranking. Ramzan Emiv in his second UFC fight. I mean, he's a phenomenal. He's been in the UFC for years. He's got wins over, Sam Harvey, but he's got wins and losses, competitive losses against Danny Roberts, against Anthony Rocco Martin, and then he faces Danny Roberts with that beautiful body work. This is how you build a guy. I don't like to compare him to other people, but Sean O'Malley's first 4 fights, he in his 4th fight, Jack Della Maddalena was given Randy Brown, a guy who was previously ranked and is very much, in the peak of his career. Sean O'Malley was given Eddie Wineland.
This is what we always say.
No disrespect to Eddie Wineland, legend of the game, not at the time.
But this is what we always say. You can tell if the UFC respects you based on matchmaking. Do they like you or not? Look at Paddy's matchmaking. They know he's not fighting anyone good compared to Israel Adesanya, Jack Della Maddalena, and so on. Like, if they respect you, they will give you the real fights, and you will climb the rankings.
They clearly believe in Maddalena. They don't give him Randy Brown in his home. I don't know what they call it, home state. I don't know of Perth, if they don't respect him. And they respect him, and they knew that he could get the job done. He knew, they don't sit these guys at a press conference if they don't think they're going to be able to speak well. And, Randy Brown played up to it perfectly. He's not a bad guy. He's a great guy, Randy Brown. And he still flipped off the crowd. He was playing the bad guy because he was in Perth. He knew his job. He knew his job was to go in there and try and silence the crowd, try and hand Jack Della Maddalena his first UFC loss and, play the bad guy. And it was working until it didn't, in my opinion.
Yeah, cosign. It was a good one. Other than that, I do want to talk a little bit Loma Lookboonmee. Very impressive work. She was leaning away off punches, landing incredible kicks that were leaving like dents in her opponent's legs. Struggled a little bit on the ground, I don't love that she's a Muay Thai. She has professional Muay Thai, MMA, and boxing experience. Her striking is never in question, but she still trains in Thailand. As we always say, go stateside. You need to improve grappling in the US. That is where wrestling is right now. You're training at she trains at Bang Tao, which Volkanovski's actually given some seminars there, and Superbon. Like you gotta even go to Australia and train with some of those wrestlers there. But I do look forward to the future of Loma Lakbumi. Who else did you see on the card that you liked?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Loma is, I want to see her against other people that she feels confident in standing up against.
Yeah.
The thing is, I don't think she's a straw weight. I think she's probably an atom weight.
Yes.
She's small for the division. We're talking straw weight. She's 5'1".
She's tiny.
It's nothing. And Elise Reed,
Carla Esparza is I think Carla is actually bigger than her. Like that. She's
without
tiny.
a doubt. I think her versus someone like Michelle Waterson Gomez, I think her name is now, would be a competitive fight because they're both tiny women.
That's good.
If I was them, I'd say, right, let's fight a strawweight, but let's weigh in at 105. Let's weigh in at the atomweight limit. No, I completely agree. I know that she used to do a lot of training with Casey O'Neill. Casey O'Neill's now Extreme Couture. Casey O'Neill's got a solid ground game. Make that move over, even if it's just for, your camp, or even if it's just for, downtime in between camps. Make that move over, and I wouldn't say learn the wrestling, because obviously she got the rear naked choke in this one. So her ground game isn't too shabby, but it could be better. She could be a killer if she had far more strings to her bow. Let's just say. Again,
looking forward to the future of it, but there are concerns.
Yeah, and first finish in the UFC, it's great. I picked her going in, and I'm glad that she got it. I'm gutted for Shane Young. I think he was just, Blake Builder was just better on the night, and then Justin Taffer just that's the most heavyweight knockout. That's the most heavyweight Australian knockout I think I've ever seen. He just Mark Hunt the shit out of Parker. Just times him switching stance, coming in, bang down the pipe.
Yeah,
Justin Taffer is just brilliant. It's a shame that I think is it his son or his relative Junior Taffer had to be pulled from the card. He wasn't able to make the walk. I think his opponent had an injury, and then he had an injury. It's a shame, but that's just the most, like I say, the most Australian heavyweight knockout I've seen in recent times. Just bang down the pipe, walk off KO. Thank you very much. And that's what you need in your hometown. You don't need someone that's going to hold you up against a fence and make it a boring fight when the crowd is all trying to get hyped up just before the co-main and main event. It was great. It was Justin Taffer's just great, and he's just keep on giving him fights like that against people that you can just absolutely sleep. Why not?
Exactly. We know what we're here for. No, I agree with you. I can't believe that Jimmy Crute and Alonzo Menifield didn't end in a knockout. Either way.
Yeah, visually it should have. Visually, Menifield should be the super heavyweight champion of the world. He looks absolutely massive, but Jimmy Crute's got a crazy chin. I don't quite know what he's made out of, because I was wincing when I was seeing him take some of those shots. But I think a draw is a fair result, and run it back. I don't mind that. Jimmy Crute's the one that was ranked, and he's saying to run it back. I think, let's be honest, deep down, I think he knew he'd lost that fight if it wasn't for Menifield grabbing the fence. I agree that the point should have been taken 100%, but Jimmy Crute deep down knows that he lost that fight, so he's going to be calling for the rematch, because that's the kind of guy that these guys are fighters. They want to decisively win these fights. They don't want to just sort of get away with a draw, as it were.
Yeah, cosine. What else did you see? What else do you want to talk about on the card that you liked?
Just looking forward to this weekend, really.
Is there anything? What's happening this weekend?
Erin Blanchfield versus not Talia Santos. Jessica Andrade stepping in on late notice, which is a vicious fight for Erin Blanchfield.
You know what I said? Do you remember when I said the biggest loser in all this weight class shakeup is Talia Santos, because she almost beat the champion, didn't get the rematch, and had the toughest matchmaking, and now she's out due to injury? It's a tough run for her.
It's rough. This whole card is there's snippets that you want to look. Don't look as far as the card itself, because we've got the main event that we'll talk about in a second. We've got Jordan Wright versus Zach Pauga.
Sure. Is this Apex? Yeah,
It's got to be Apex.
Sucks.
That Payuga coming off, co-main event, coming off a loss. Jordan Wright, co-main event.
Sure,
I think
that's not good.
Jordan Wright coming off 1 win in 5, 3 straight losses, all by finish. This is the co-main event as per Tapology, so it's not, don't take it as gospel, but
yeah,
fuck me, we do better. Just I can't. But then you got Jim Miller versus Alexander Hernandez. Hernandez stepping in on late notice. Boom that shit up to the co-main event. Lena Landsberg, I love Lena Landsberg. I think she's absolutely phenomenal taking on Maya Bueno Silva. We've got, I'm assuming, I'd be honest, I've not, a guy making his debut. He's 23-0 with 16 finishes.
Okay.
Taking on Jamal Emmers. Vincent Prue is here. I don't know what weight class he competes at anymore because he just can he be out? Yeah, so it's light heavyweight because he can be asked to cut weight this week. But yeah, for me, this is all about the the main event. Erin Blanchfield, definitely. Hottest prospect in the women's division at the moment, very possibly. She's got one less loss on her record to Tracy Cortez, but she just battered and dominated Molly McCann.
It was nothing. It was amazing.
Finished JJ Aldrich. She finished Miranda Maverick. She dominated Miranda Maverick as well. She also holds a win over Sarah Arthur and Brogan Walker, I believe, is on Tough. The Tough finalists, I believe. Yeah. So she. If you look at down a record, she's got wins over UFC caliber girls back in Invicta. Kay Hansen, yes, she was cut from the UFC, but UFC caliber girl Victoria Leonardo obviously was. I think she is in the UFC. Yeah, beat Mandy Bomb back in the day.
And keep in mind that she was maybe 21, 20 during that fight. Like
exactly.
She has to be
she's
improving.
Only 23 now.
Yeah.
Also Jack Della Maddalena is 26.
Yeah, that's insane. That's just how.
Jesus. But yeah, go. That's stressful for me. But yeah, Erin Blanchard, I think she's got a much tougher matchup in Jessica Andrade. Yeah. How much of a bad man is Jessica Andrade as well? She fought last month. Yeah, last month. Yeah. UFC 283. Not even a month ago. And it won't, I think it'll be exactly 1 month or just shy of 1 month since she last fought, jumping straight back in, 125. This is what we like. This is what we like to do. This is what we like to see. I think it's going to be tough for Erin Blanchfield because although she's going to probably have the cardio advantage over Jessica Andrade isn't easily taken down and controlled. Yes, she was taken down and controlled by Shevchenko, but that's different ball game, and we'll see what level Erin Blanchfield is. When she takes on someone that's competed for. She competed for. Oh no, she hasn't competed for the bantamweight, but she competed for 2 out of 3 titles on multiple occasions. Jessica Andrade is world class. She is a championship level fighter.
Yeah,
I don't know where she's ranked in the UFC rankings because she obviously drifts in between the 2 divisions, so it might not be completely accurate.
But yeah, since like quite a while, like she jumped around weight classes, fought for both belts. But
she's ranked in both. She's ranked in both strawweight and flyweight. She's ranked number 6 in strawweight and number 3 in the flyweight division. Erin Blanchfield ranked number 10. So we could be looking at. Could possibly be looking at a title shot for Blanchfield off the back of this one.
That's a statement win.
For some reason, though, they've flyweight. They've got 2 people ranked number 1, both Talia Santos and Manon Fiorot. UFC going to UFC, I guess, but it is what it is. Rose Namajunas has also gone up 1 in the pound for pound rankings. As of Talia Santos, both coming off losses.
Independent rankings are better.
I'm not going to bring it up. I'm not going to bring it up. But no, I think this weekend is going to be a big test for Erin Blanchfield. If she can get the takedown, we know how controlling she is on the ground. Just ask Molly McCann. But it's a tough one. It is a tough one, and there's a reason why it's a tough one because Jessica Andrade, like I say, is a championship level fighter. She hasn't lost since she lost when competing for the bout against Shevchenko. Since then, she's finished Cynthia Calvillo. She finished with that standing arm triangle, Amanda Lemos, and then she just absolutely battered Lauren Murphy in Brazil. So she's enjoying a rich run of form, and it's like I say, it's going to be tough for Blanchfield.
Yeah,
but remember, Andrade is taking this on short notice, so who knows?
And what a state. I think Erin Blanchfield, no shame in losing, but if she wins, like I'm getting the feeling Blanchfield might get this done. She's got a lot of momentum coming into this fight, but
Yeah,
it's
for
a
sure.
tough fight. It's a tough one. Even being an ace grappler, it's still a matter of getting to the ground against someone like Jessica Andrade, and that's not an easy task.
No, for sure. It's she also doesn't strike me. I'm just going on her Instagram now. She just doesn't strike me as someone that's too bothered. 2 days ago, she tweeted a picture of her and Santos saying next week, and then she tweeted a picture. She Instagrammed a picture of her and Jessica Andrade saying little switch up next week. She doesn't care. She doesn't strike me as someone that cares about. She beats the body that's in front of her, whether that be Molly McCann, Talia Santos, or on this occasion it'll be Jessica Andrade. Who cares as far as she's concerned? She certainly doesn't.
Yeah, no, it's going to be a good one. I'm looking forward to it. Nothing else on that card to break down, and I think for next week there's really not much else that I see that's worth talking about.
No, there's a little bit of sort of British interest in the boxing, but then I think that we're forgetting that now that UFC 284 is in the book, we're looking ahead to UFC 285. John Jones returned, Shevchenko, and that's one of the best cards. Well, it's the best card, obviously, of the year so far. But we're already looking ahead now to less than a month. 4th of March, I think it is, or 5th of March. We've got John Jones, Cyril Gane, Valentina versus Grasso, Pickett versus Nickel, Jeff Neal, Shavkat. Derek Brunson, Duplessis. Ian Gary is making the return. Cody Garbrandt's on the card again. Unfortunately, Dan Hooker isn't on the card. He broke his hand, but maybe we'll get a Jalen Turner fight. Jalen Turner will get rebooked against someone. So, it's relentless for the UFC, and I'm not complaining about it at all. We've got fight nights, obviously, before that, but the next big numbered pay-per-view event is the return of John Jones, which, exciting times.
It's going to be a big breakdown for that one as well. Huge discussion on it. And it's like fight season. We're finally into like what feels like regular season, but I can't believe you skipped over the people's main event. Who do you have? Tommy Fury, Jake Paul.
I mean,
is it going to happen? Is it even going to happen?
Your guess is as good as mine, man. I mean, I saw that Tommy didn't turn up to the press conference last week, but I mean, I also read a comment. He's got a point. Why would he, in the middle of training camp, fly all the way over to Saudi Arabia to do a press conference, to fly back, to then fly back a week later and get acclimated?
I know.
He's got a point. He could have zoomed in. He could have done something. But, I think, I'm not too mad about him not turning up. I didn't think the press conference had to be in Saudi Arabia. It couldn't have been in the US, obviously, because Tommy can't get in famously. But why didn't they do it when Jake Paul was over here a few weeks ago?
Well, this is why the UFC does press conferences the week of. They do it Wednesday, the fight's Saturday. Why are you doing it?
And it works. It gets the crowd that can't get tickets to the event. It gets them all excited and everything. So it's a free event. 9 times out of 10, it's a free event to attend, and it makes sense. I'm not too mad about him not turning up.
I don't think there's a ton to look into there, but the fight has actually some momentum. I think we're actually starting to look at this as like Tommy Fury's the joke in this one. How insane have we gotten in boxing that we're like Tommy Fury's the joke compared to Jake Paul?
Yeah, we're at a time now where Jake Paul is becoming a more legitimate boxer than someone with a second name Fury, which is crazy to me. I do not get it, but it.
Kind of enjoying it at this point.
I'm not mad about it. We'll get a couple of clicks out of it, I guess, because it's Jake Paul's good at Jake Paul. He knocked out Tyron Woodley. He fought. He fought with Anderson Silva. Yeah, the actual card itself.
I haven't even looked at it. I only know that one.
It's Badu Jack, Alunga Makabu. Yeah, absolutely, that is a phenomenal fight.
Badu Jack's good. I like Badu Jack.
Badu Jack's good. Alumba Makabu is. He was supposed to be fighting Canelo at cruiserweight when Canelo wanted to move up to cruiserweight. I'm glad that he didn't, because he would have slept Canelo. I'm excited for the card. The main event is what it is. I'm excited for the card itself, but it is, like I say, it is what it is.
It's fine. It's fine. This actually isn't even the worst. It's fine. What else do we need to cover off? What you got going on this week? What do you have coming up? All that good stuff.
In about 50 minutes, I'm sitting down with Nathaniel Wood. Obviously, meant to be competing at UFC London he's out with an injury, unfortunately. So we'll sit down and discuss that.
He looked so good in his last fight too.
I'm gutted because he was facing Lerone Murphy. Lerone Murphy is a phenomenal fighter in his own right. I really wanted to see Nathaniel compete in London, but it is what it is. These things happen. So I'll sit down and talk to him a little bit about the injury. He's got a few bits going on outside of the octagon, and then like I said, I've got the interview will be up on YouTube later on in the week.
Awesome stuff. Looking forward to it, Frazer. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you very much.